Retro Hangover, supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Ashton Ruby, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Stud Still Smash the Milkman, Raging Demon, Katie Quigg, JC, Megan Garuso, Mast Keaton, Andrew Liguori, Ozzy Garcia, The Retro Vixen, Adam from The Good, the Bad, and the Backlog, Lunchbox, aka The Disgruntled Gamer, Dischimera, Jenny E, Rick Firestone, Parallax Puddles, Soha, Dave Jackson, Matt, aka Stormageddon, Retro Overdrive, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Keith Gasper, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands Podcast, Ash Event, Alan Bingham, Ryan Player One, Mike the Ref from Backbreaker Gaming, Darth Emick, Low5 Alex, Alt, and Renner Dreaming. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated. Welcome to The Flight, a consumable curation of champions and catastrophes that is considerate of your chronometer. It is myself, Chris Copleen, and I am here to talk about another subject that was brought up by our patrons. And today's topic is the best 3D platformers that aren't Mario, which was suggested by our patron Alt. Thank you, Alt, for suggesting this. The reason that Alt was able to suggest this is because Alt is a patron of our show. And if you are a patron, you can suggest topics and vote on topics for The Flight over on our Discord. You can join for as little as $1. Join our Discord and just go over to Top 5 Suggestions, and you can find that there. Speaking of which, we were completely delinquent in our responsibilities and failed to say who nominated the last topic for The Flight 2 weeks ago, and that was Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast. Please go check that out. I know Nomad, he recommends our show like on every single episode that he has over there, and I'm eternally grateful. So the fact that like I botched that's my fault, because I'm the one who does these things and organizes it and figures out who nominated these topics. So sorry, Nomad, go check out the Retro Wildlands podcast, because Nomad did recommend the topic of side characters that deserve their own games. So thank you, Nomad, for being a patron. Thank you, Nomad, for recommending that, and congratulations on one of your topics winning. And I'm sorry that it took an additional 2 weeks for you to get that recognition. But I think we're about to get on with the show here for those 3D platformers that just ain't Mario. What do you think, Shane?
I think so. I think we should get to it. These other well, I won't say mascots, because not all of them are mascot platformers. That was a specific era of time. But I think these other characters deserve a little bit of the spotlight. You know, the portly plumber, I think, has gotten enough of it. So, Chris, why don't you go ahead and kick this thing off?
Number 5.
All right, so I'm going to kick this thing off, but before I do, I just need to open this up that while I was trying to think of a list for my top 5 3D platformers that aren't Mario, I came to the stunning revelation that I just don't play 3D platformers. I was just kind of shocked. I thought I had played a lot of them over the years, especially since somebody who has been in the Nintendo camp for so long and just sort of likes mascot games. I guess that if it wasn't Mario, I just largely wasn't playing it. So I really had to sit down and think, what have I played? What do I like? So if there are big names missing on this list, like, I don't know, Banjo-Kazooie, it's probably because I haven't played it. Also, Conker's Bad Fur Day is shit, so that's not showing up on this list either. Yes, I know. It was controversial and shocking, but it also sucked. But anyway, moving on. My number 5, and I'm probably going to get some eye rolls on this, or a big question mark over your head if you could put that there. And Shane's probably going to somewhat yell at me when I say my number 5 here, but I think it fits. I think I'm justified in this. And I'm going to say Assassin's Creed 2?
Get the fuck out
Is
of
that
here. All right, let's stop. Let's close this episode now. We're done. That's it. I'm sorry. A 3D platformer?
I you're on platforms, you
Oh my god.
climb them,
Okay, you know
and
what? You
it's
know
in
what? You know what? I'll
3D.
I'll I'll allow it because there's one on my list that is sort of an edge case too, and so you know what? It's fine. Just go for it.
Look, I had to stretch this out because everything I could think of that was 3D involved platforms is like, should I include God of War? I'm like, that's a beat 'em up. That's a straight up beat 'em up. So I was thinking, what discourages combat and still wants you to climb shit and like I don't what there's probably a better word for climb. It's probably on the tip of my mind. I know what it is, but I can't say it at the moment. But like go up buildings and stuff like that. And Assassin's Creed does that. And the best Assassin's Creed game I've played is Assassin's Creed 2. And you jump off platforms into hay bales, and you do parkour and shit like that. That's all natural and looks really cool. So you know what? Assassin's Creed 2 is my number 5, and that's the reason it's here because I realized I haven't played a lot of 3D platformers, and I really like Assassin's Creed 2, and I think it fits. So there you go. Assassin's Creed 2, number 5, 3D platformer. It's not Mario. It is not Mario, but there's a Mario in there.
Also Italian. So there you go.
Also Italian. Doesn't own a giant monkey.
Does not. No. Cool. All right. Well, I feel like the rest of this list is going to be wild, but we'll start with my number 5, and that is an actual 3D platformer, and that is Epic Mickey.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Epic Mickey's a great game. I talked about this before, but it's hampered by the fact that the dev team was sort of rushed to get it out the door. I think if it had had more time in the oven to iron out some of the bugs and weird control issues and things like that, I think it would have been even better. But I think at this point, I want to say I think it's attained like cult classic status, and the fact that the remake is coming out somewhat imminently, I am cautiously optimistic for that because I will 100% replay the game if the remaster is solid and fixes up some of the crappier parts of the experience, because the game itself at its core is a lot of fun and it's very imaginative. And if you like Mickey Mouse or any of like the Disney history or anything like that at all, it's a really fun time. So yeah, that's why it's starting off my list.
I've not played it, but I have Epic Mickey, and yeah, I think that looks like a fun game. Maybe I'll play it one day.
Number 4.
So my number 4 is Crash Bandicoot Warped. I could have put any Crash Bandicoot game on here, really. I just don't remember having a great time with Crash Bandicoot 1. I thought it was okay. Go back and listen to that episode that we did with Eric Guess, who is probably on an episode that you listened to last week with Donkey Kong Country 2. So that's very fitting. But yeah, go Crash Bandicoot Warped, I think is probably the best Crash Bandicoot game. It's definitely the one I had the most amount of fun with. Does it have some old platformer kind of bullshit? Yes. Is it like open world 3D like Mario? No. Is it Sonic's ass game? Yeah, of course it is. But it's 3D and it's a platformer, and you can't do it really on a 2D plane. So there you go. It's a fantastic little game, and it's more accessible now than it probably will be for a while, because you can get in the Insane Trilogy with updated graphics and everything like that. And I highly suggest you go check that out. It has varying gameplay too. Like there's swimming levels, there's traditional action levels. You can ride a tiger with Crash's sister or whatever. And I'll have to admit, I haven't beaten this game. In fact, I'm looking at the list. I think I've only beaten 2 of the games on this list, 3 actually. But I think that my time spent with Crash Bandicoot Warped was a really good time, and I want to spend more time with it. And like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest Crash Bandicoot fan, but I do think that this is something that you should check out. So yeah, there's my number 4, Crash Bandicoot Warped.
All right. So here's where I will go ahead and make Chris's number 5 pick justified because
Okay.
though I do feel like this is more of a platformer than Assassin's Creed 2, it is not what one would immediately think of when you think 3D platformer. So,
Mm.
my number 4 is Mirror's Edge.
No, it's totally a 3D platformer. Yeah, you're justified, 100%.
I'm okay. I was trying to help you out here, but thank you. I'll take.
I don't care. Fuck me. I'll take the L.
All right, fine. Yeah. So it's a really short game, by all accounts, but honestly, I think that's for the best. The mechanic, the core conceit, I suppose, if you're not familiar with Mirror's Edge, is it's a first person parkour game, and that sounds like it could be incredibly disorienting. But it's not. They actually pulled it off extremely well, and it's a lot of fun. And when you get into that rhythm, it feels real good. Honestly, I think the only detractor for that game is when it pauses to try to get you to do combat. I think that was totally unnecessary. But other than that, the experience is great. And like I said, though I think some people wouldn't immediately think of it as a 3D platformer, because in your mind, at least for me, but who the fuck knows? I'm chronically online and deep in the retro video game podcast realm, so don't take my opinion for the average Joe, I guess. But when I hear 3D platformer, I don't think that. I think of Mario 64 or Banjo Kazooie or whatever.
Ukulele.
Ukulele, which did not make it on my list because I didn't actually enjoy playing that game all that much. But anyway, yeah, so there you go. Mirror's Edge, highly recommend. I have not played Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which apparently is sort of like a soft reboot of Mirror's Edge, and it's supposed to be, I think, a bit longer and a little more fleshed out, and it takes out some of the gun combat stuff. So I don't know if it's better, but all I do know is I played the first one and had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, Mirror's Edge, the game I do need to check out. I have it on my PS3. I haven't played it yet. I really should, especially if you say it's really short.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe that's the game we need to look at someday. I would definitely be into it if I don't throw up. I heard that game can make you sick, but that's probably why it's so short.
Number 3.
All right, my number 3 is a series I think is dangerously close to being severely underrated, because I do think not just in the 3D realm, but in the 2D realm, it's one of the best platformers made, period. Like, in terms of 2D platformers, this is a series that I think has the best and most fun game I've ever played in the 2D platformer realm, which is like high praise, because I do like my 2D platformers for an extent, and I think the series has the one I had the most fun with, and that is Rayman. And for the specific entry I'm going to be making for this one, it's going to be Rayman 2 for the N64 and Dreamcast, and I believe PS1. But I played this more on the Dreamcast. First came out in the N64 in 1999, and this is a fantastic little 3D platformer. Have I played a ton of it? No, I haven't. I haven't beat it to completion. But what I can tell you is this is what really broke Rayman out as a franchise character for Ubisoft. This is why Rayman hung around for so long as Rayman did, up until like it just became like Minions with Despicable Me, where all you get is the rabbits, and Rayman kind of went away. But I think that when you look at 2D platformers that are trying to be something that isn't quite Mario, and there is collectathon elements to it, but there always were, if you go back to the original one, and it didn't seem too intimidating in how to get those collectibles, which I forget the name of them. They're like little like firefly creatures that are all weird, but like there's a lot of innovation there and it's just done so well in terms of what it was. And it wasn't a Nintendo product, and I don't know how big Ubisoft was at the time. I don't really think there was EA back then that was just living off the sports branding, but you didn't have Ubisoft back then wasn't like what Ubisoft is today, whereas this just mega giant company, just because video games were still trying to get that way. And I just look at what Rayman 2 is able to accomplish, and it's a stunning example of what you can do when you're just really trying to do a 3D platformer for the first time with a franchise that you started off with as a 2D platformer. So a successful transition into 3D as well. So if you haven't played Rayman 2 before, I highly recommend you go take a look at Rayman 2, just like I normally say with all these games. I know I repeat myself a lot with that. But yeah, Rayman 2 is one of those games that you deserve to give a look.
All right. Well, I'm reaching a little bit further back into the early aughts with this one. And if my memory serves me correct, I believe this was the official jump to 3D for this game. I could be wrong about that. Maybe you can keep me honest. I don't know. But my number 3 is going to be Prince of Persia: Sands of Time.
Mm,
Man, I
I
feel
think
like
it was, yeah, it was.
yeah, I think this was Prince of Persia's first like foray into the third dimension, and they they did a pretty good job, let's just say. It is not without its warts for sure, but as a super early 2000s 3D platformer, this thing does some really awesome shit. And somehow they really did manage to translate that Prince of Persia gameplay from 2D really well into the three-dimensional space and really expand on it as well. And the subtitle Sands of Time is really sort of like the core gimmick of the whole game, right? Because you have this magical dagger that allows you to rewind time. And so it really makes for interesting gameplay when, you're trying to nail a jump or whatever, and you can just use that to just rewind yourself in real time backwards and like try a jump again, or try a combat encounter a different way or something like that. Like it's a really neat mechanic, and that's something like that has definitely been done since, but it was certainly novel at the time when it came out. And I think, especially when you think about how many games either just straight up did not survive or took a real big L at the beginning, when trying to bridge that gap between 2D and 3D. Prince of fucking Persia, of all things, was not on my bingo card for games to successfully make that leap, no pun intended, but it did, and it's a lot of fun. I have not played what was that other one, Two Princes, Two Crowns, whatever it was, the fucking edgelord follow up to it, where you have like a split personality or whatever, and well, I can be your angle or your devil, but I don't know if that one's any good, but I know that this one is, at the very least.
Made by the emo kids over there at Ubisoft. Both Ubisoft games, I'm pretty sure. Prince of Persia was Ubisoft, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Back-to-back Ubisoft games.
There you go.
Maybe. I don't know if that's good or not. We're selling out, Shane. We're becoming AAA game fans.
Hey, listen,
Slowly but surely.
they all had their heyday,
Of course.
Number 2.
So my number 2, I don't think I get hate for this, but this game is considered to be flawed nowadays. I don't care. I love this game. This game made me want to buy a Dreamcast, even though I don't think it's necessarily the game that was best at launch for the Dreamcast in retrospect, but it was the one that made me fall in love with the system, and I think it made a lot of other people fall in love with the system. And as I already said, it's not perfect. It has a lot of flaws. It's glitchy as hell. But you know what? Because of that, it's beautiful. And if we're making a list that we have to exclude Mario from, it's only fitting that I include one game that includes his former chief rival, and that is Sonic Adventure. I cannot put into words why I love this game, because I probably shouldn't. Because why would any reasonable, insane person love this if they were playing this today for the first time? The answer is they probably wouldn't. They'd probably be like, wow, your standards were super low back then, and I would promptly tell them to shut up and hate them. Because this, is this nostalgia? Yes, this is nostalgia. To see Sonic in 3D finally, that wasn't from an isometric viewpoint, and he could talk, and he sounded like Sonic should sound, and he moved like Sonic should move. And he got chased by the whale. Do you remember getting chased by the whale? That was great. I love getting chased by the whale. But overall, like, especially Sonic's parts, if you go back to Sonic Adventure and if you could just play as Sonic and beat the game just as Sonic and that would be it, it's such a fun game. Just shut your brain off for the entire time. And it's a game that just, if you're a Sonic fan, if you grew up with a Sega Genesis and you played the Sonic games, you're going to enjoy this. If you think about things critically, no, you're not going to. If you sit there for 5 seconds, be like, why did I glitch through this wall? Why did I die for no reason? Why do I have to play a fishing game with a character I hate? Yeah, you're probably not going to like it. But just throw that to the side and just recognize that Sonic Adventure was a step forward graphically for many people, including myself, and showed the potential of what the Dreamcast could do. Is this really me talking about the Dreamcast? Is this really me trying to reminisce on a system, the first system I was able to buy with my own money, and just give it that love? Probably. But still, my number 2 is going to be Sonic Adventure 2. Love you, Sonic.
I like Escape from the City.
I think that was 2. That's Sonic
Yes.
Adventure 2. That game
Yes.
does.
No, I know. I know that. I just like that intro sequence.
That's a good level.
It is.
That's a really good level.
It's a great introduction that kind of sets you up for failure. But anyway.
Yes.
All right. So my number 2, I was going back and forth on whether I wanted to put the original or the sequel here. And for the sake of my own personal bias and nostalgia, I'm going with the original, though I think you could probably make an argument that like the sequel is objectively probably better, but I'm going to go with the first one, and that is American McGee's Alice. This is such a good game, man. Like it's one of those ones, actually it's funny because it's sort of like a semi-integral part of like, I guess my teenage years, because both my brother and I were like really into playing this game, and it was several years ago now, but I bought him a nicely framed piece of artwork from the game where it's the shot of it's the shot of Alice and the Mad Hatter sitting at opposite ends of the table, and they're both holding like weapons underneath the table but drinking tea with their other hand above the table, and it's a really cool piece of art. But anyway, yeah, I think just the imaginative spin that this put on, you know, the world of Alice in Wonderland, and sort of like the twisted version of everything. I know that it very easily could and probably does come across as a little edgy, a little cringy maybe. But also remember that this was like early to mid 2000s. So that was kind of on brand at the time. And also American McGee being part of the original id squad. He was responsible for a lot of the like creature design and environmental stuff for things like Doom. So, you know, kind of keep that in mind, and you can kind of see where he went here. But just even though I think the early polygonal look of this doesn't necessarily age super well, the sheer amount of artistic direction I think that went into this game helps it to sort of stave off some of that, you know, FF7 effect is what I'm going to call it. And it still looks pretty decent today. You can get some mods to make it a little bit more up-resed and widescreen and all that stuff, and it actually still plays extremely well that way. But as far as 3D platformers go, especially in a time when like the early to mid 2000s, I don't really think there was a ton of that going on. So it was a little bit of an outlier. And the fact that it was originally like a PC title, which is even weirder for a platformer. But all in all, definitely a nostalgia one for me. And I think one that I feel like tends to sometimes get overlooked. Sometimes even in favor of its sequel, Madness Returns, because like I said, I think graphically and mechanically, I think it is an improvement over the first one, but I got a special place for the first one in my heart. So there you go.
That is a good pick. I didn't even think about that. I probably wouldn't have included it just because, I mean, our comments are there in Alice Madness Returns in the episode that we did with Lindsay. So go check that out if you want to hear more about our opinions on Alice Madness. Well, not Madness Returns. Alice, American McGee's Alice.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go check that out.
Number 1.
Okay, my number 1 is kind of cheating. Because there are going to be people that say...
Really?
Yeah, I know, shocker.
It's like Assassin's Creed 2.
I'm probably cheating even more because some people will say this is a 2D game. It's a 2.5D game because you do throw things into the background and foreground, or you can. So that technically makes it 3D. So, fuck me. But this game needs recognition and love and must be protected, and that is Cloa.
Okay.
Door to Phantom Mile. I'm more talking about the Wii game. That's where I played it, and I am absolutely in love with the game Cloa. It's every single time I've said it's great. Look, the fact that this game has like puzzle elements in its platforming, but still never betrays the fact that it is a platformer. The fact that it has its own unique original character. Just the fact that it's never too overly difficult while never being too overly easy, and does have a lot of its mostly 2D platforming elements while still trying to incorporate 3D elements into the game that you do need to keep in mind. It's just an overall, example of how to make a 2D platformer with just continuous puzzle elements and make you think. Like the boss fights within themselves are 3D game. Is a total 3D game for the most part. You could probably still do it within a 2D environment, especially in today's age with the graphical capabilities. But everything you had back then was, just a lot of rotation, a lot of polygons in combination with the sprite that was Cloa and his weapon, Hupo. And I think that Cloa is, in terms of being that 3D platformer, is there collectible elements to it? And I'm going to speak more to the Wii game because I have not played the PlayStation 1 game. But in terms of the Wii game, are there collectible elements to it? Yes. But they all feel natural. You don't have to go out of your way on a level in order to collect everything that's there. If you just play through the natural rhythm and flow of the level in and of itself, you'll be able to get everything that you need to get. And everything kind of makes sense. Everything made sense to me. Everything clicked in terms of, hey, look, there's an item over there. And the setup for these enemies here makes sense if I use this enemy here to go to this enemy here, and the combination here will allow me to reach this item in the background that I normally wouldn't be able to get. And there was just such a sense of joy that I got from it because the aesthetic is incredible in terms of just the overall delivery. The soundtrack is really good, and we must protect Cloa. I don't know if a lot of people bought the remaster collection that came out for like the modern consoles, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, when it came out. All of it, of course, is backwards compatible with the series and PS5, whatever. And I really hope they did, because I saw it go on sale really quick. I know a lot of people in our community did buy the Tales from Reverie collection for Cloa. I have a physical copy from Play Asia myself that has 1 and 2. I have the Japanese copy. So I do hope the game the series continues to get sequels, because it is a great series, and Cloa doesn't get enough recognition. And I know a lot of people will probably say it's more of a 2D game than a 3D game, but it does certainly play into its 3D elements, so I certainly would consider that it counts. And every opportunity I will get to shout out Cloa, I will do so. So yeah, Cloa is my number 1 3D platformer.
Very nice. So before I get into my number 1, I want to say that clearly there are a lot of other 3D platformers that did not make it onto either one of our lists.
Yeah.
That by all rights, probably should be there, just because everybody likes them apparently. But if Chris and I learned anything from this particular episode, it is that neither one of us have played a ton of 3D platformers. So take that for what you will. And I will say, I really wanted to put the SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom on here because I have heard nothing but praise for that game, and I actually own the rehydrated like HD remake of it, but I have not had a chance to play it, and so I could not in good conscience put it on here, but I've heard a lot of good things. So but with that said, my number one for 3D platformer that is not Mario, I'm also realizing that apparently a lot of these I think all of these are like early to mid 2000 games now that I'm looking at my list. I don't know what that means, but anyway, it's Psychonauts.
I knew it.
Psychonauts is a good ass fucking game. Let me tell you. And apparently Chris guessed that one.
I was going to ask you before if you ever had a time to pause if your number one started with a P. I definitely had a feeling that was going to be the route you were going to say.
Oh, absolutely. The game's fucking phenomenal. Unfortunately, I have not had the time to go and play the sequel. I have it. I backed it and all that good shit, or whatever, but someday, maybe. But anyway, the first one's real good. And, it's got that signature Tim Schafer kind of look and feel to it. And you know how I was talking about the artistic direction with American McGee's Alice? The same absolutely applies here. This game has so much personality and charm, just and oddness and just quirky shit, just like oozing out of every fucking vertice. Man, it's not even that it's like peak platforming, because it's not even that really. Like I remember there are times where I got a little frustrated with some of the more seriously platformy shit that goes on. So I'm not even going to say that it's like mechanically the best 3D platformer. It's just the whole presentation package. Like the voice acting is fucking spot on. I mean, if for nothing else, the same voice actor that played Invader Zim is also Raz. So you have to appreciate that. And like I said, the visual presentation is just so fantastic. The artistic style of this game is like second to none. I adore it. And I'm always about that sort of like oddball, off the wall kind of humor. And this game has that in spades for sure. And also, at the end of the day, it still kind of tells a deep story. Like there's a lot of personal exploration that happens with Raz and things like that as he's, kind of traversing the mindscapes, if you will. So yeah, Psychonauts absolutely deserves to be at the top of my list. It is a gem. And if you haven't played it, you really should.
All right. I guess that concludes our top 5 3D platformers that are not Mario. I hope we didn't disappoint you too much. It is quite obvious.
Where's Donkey Kong 64, Chris?
I don't think that's ever going to be on my top 5 list. I'm sorry to say. Not after the things I know about it. I don't want to be too judgmental. I'm not here to judge it. I haven't played it, but when it's like there's 15 different types of collectibles and there's like 100 of each one of them and they're hidden really well, you can go fuck yourself.
And you have to collect them with a specific character.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No.
But anyway, yeah, there's definitely a lot that we didn't include here, but like we said, we try to pick things that we actually have experience with, and fortunately or unfortunately, I guess, depending on how you look at it, we just haven't played a lot of them, so they're not going to be here. There's like a more recent one. I'm pretty sure I own it. Apparently, Hat in Time is really fucking good, but it didn't make it onto my list because I haven't played it yet. So I guess what I'm saying is that there is an opportunity for you as either a current patron, if you're listening, and in that case, thank you, or perhaps a future patron, a patron to be, one might say. And the reason I bring that up is because if you are in fact a patron of the show, then you can get in on the democracy that occurs in our Discord and also sort of in the Patreon itself with our polls, where you can suggest topics just like these, and you could say, hey, you know what, I want a part two. I want the sequel. I want to know 5 more 3D platformers that aren't Mario, and I might suggest that you wait a little while to put that up as a potential topic, because I think Chris and I need time to maybe play some of those other games, because we may not have 5 more to talk about right now.
I'll just make shit up.
Yeah, but sometime in the future, we'll just put every Assassin's Creed game on our lists. That'll be just piss everybody off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But at any rate, you could do that. So if that is interesting, if that is alluring to you, you can get over to our Patreon, and for as little as $1, you can get in on all that patron goodness. And how do you get there? I hear you asking from across the ether. And fortunately enough for you, I have the answer that you're looking for, and that is Linktree, the one and only tree of links. Just go to linktr.ee/retro hangover. That's it. All you got to do. And once you pop on over there, you'll find a button that says Patreon. That's where you got to go. Now, there are other buttons, equally important buttons, because we're equal opportunity button mashers here. And so whether you go to the Patreon, or you could head on over to our merch store if you want to support the show in that way and get yourself some sweet swag. Maybe you want to check out our socials or our YouTube channel, where we upload VODs of our Twitch shenanigans, as well as video versions of all of our episodes. Those are there for you. Maybe you want to get into that publicly available Discord, whether you're a patron or not. Just jump in there. It's a good time. We got a good community, lots of fun discussions always going on. Also monthly competitions where you can win prizes. That's right. You could actually win things if you are good as the video games. So there you go. Chris, what do you have to tell the people? Because I have been shilling for far too long.
Yeah, so if you head over to twitch.tv/retro hangover, you can find us streaming there at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Sundays. And that's what we call our Sunday stream, appropriately, I think. So if you head over to twitch.tv/retro hangover on Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, you can find us playing a game of some kind where we have fantastic conversations with our patrons. You know what? I just thought of something. Shadow of the Colossus is technically a platformer, isn't it?
I mean, I guess. Yeah, kind of. I mean,
God
if you're
damn
saying
it.
Assassin's Creed 2 is, then sure.
I hate myself. But yeah, twitch.tv.
All right. Well, Cloa, everybody.
Cloa. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, with all of that having been said, with maybe a twinge of regret, until next time.
Play with your should have been Shadow of the Colossus joysticks.